Hi everyone. I hadn't intended to do a YouTube video because of time constraints, and I just did a little reel. Basically, I just had my camera on while I was working on this, and a little bit filmed, and I cut it down and made a reel on Instagram. However, so many people were interested in how I did it. Have done this so far. There's still lots more work to do on this one. But I thought I will go ahead and do it. My kid is asleep still. It's very early in the morning, and I thought, right, I'm just going to quickly show this because it's actually not difficult. So people were interested in the pages, in how I got these done. And I'm not going to flick through it because I've actually worked on it, and that's still waiting to see that. So the reason these all look so different is because they have been individually done. It's over 300 pages, and each one was lovingly worked on, and it was very laborious, but I didn't feel it that way. I approached it as it was meditative. It was quiet little moments that I could just get this done. So I'm just going to quickly show you. So obviously the book is finished, so I can't show you, but all the pages that I pulled out, I'll just demonstrate on there what I did. Because I've done a reel already, I'm going to add editor into this, so you might see an odd bit of me just talking about the book, but I'll come back then and do the pages. Hi everyone, I'm showing you here my new little project. It's an altered book, this beautiful Jane Eyre, a lovely vintage book, so it has a lovely hardcover and really nice thick pages. So this will bulk out with paint and fabric and whatever else I throw at it, then I'm removing pages. I look for each signature, as you saw me doing there, and I'll go for the middle, and I always test a little bit to see how strong the stitches are. And normally I just like to start pulling, but if the stitches are also pulling out, then it's something I would have to consider. You can use a craft knife. I'm terrible with it. I just don't have enough patience to be that precise. So guaranteed, even if I was being somewhat careful here, but guaranteed I'm going to cut through the stitches. But if you're able to do it, it is an option. And that all you have to do is nick just near it so that you're not pulling the stitches out so much. You don't have to make huge cuts through if you don't want to. And the good thing about this is that it might save your stitches, but there, you can see I've cut through. But you do end up with a folio, which is pretty cool, instead of just single pages. You can see there how much, it's less bulk now, just the middle of each signature. It's been thinned out, and here it is stained. I've thrown inks at it and all sorts, and I've beaten it up with a hammer. And the pages, I soaked the ends, but the ink just wasn't coming through because of the sizing on the paper, so I couldn't soak them, which would be a great thing to do. But instead I stained individually every single page, which is about 300 pages. So yeah, it took a couple of days. Took a couple of days, but it was extremely meditative, and I could watch my child and still be around on hand and just do a page, a folio here and there, and I really enjoyed it. These are just backgrounds, like really just to get something on there and to get the feel and the vibe of the journal prepped. And then some of these will just be covered a lot, some less so. See what happens. So I hope you enjoyed seeing that, and I'm looking forward to working in it and showing you the results. Okay, so let's pretend this is the book. So it's not possible to recreate exactly what I did because that was, whatever it was, 3 days ago, and it was a very specific moment. It was a very specific mix of ingredients. However, one thing, for anyone who's been following me for some time, they know that I love to keep things really simple. So in actuality, it's really, really simple how I got these pages looking this way. The only thing that's not so simple is what my exact mix of colors was, because when I'm working that way and intuitively, I'm just throwing stuff, and honestly, I can just throw anything together, and whatever it comes out with is and feels good to me at the time is what I use. So the actual mix, I'm not entirely sure. However, I do have some of them still in front of me. See, look at this gorgeous underpaper with all the colours reused because it's lovely and thin. It becomes really good collage material. So as I said, I can't necessarily remember my mixes, but I'm essentially using inks. One of the things you would notice on the pages is that there is also some brown, and you could certainly use tea and coffee for that. You can even do that first and then add colour, but that's going to come out slightly different. But I really wanted inks. I wanted acrylic inks. I want this is my background. I'm going to do lots of mixed media on top, or well, I don't know, see how it goes, what exactly I do and what the book brings out in me. But my intention was not to do it in watercolor. Also watercolor with just 300 pages I think would have just been too much in hindsight. It's not like I thought of that first, but in hindsight, watercolor, dip dip dip, 300, no. So I needed a dish and a good size brush for this. I've used Liquitex, but I think I've used something else somewhere. So I've got here muted grey, and anyone who has the muted grey Liquitex knows that it's sort of like a mauve, like a muted mauve. It's called grey though. There's muted violet as well. I threw this hot pink Carcos fountain pen ink. I know, this is what I mean by different things that I've mixed. I have deep violet. Then I also made a brown, and honestly, this is alchemy. This has all sorts going on in here. I think I've got a little bit of burnt sienna, but that was really orangey. So I just got it to a point that I was happy with the brown, essentially. So it's really easy. There is nothing really complicated about this technique. I'm just going to make a little pink one just to show some variety. So what I've done is I've created two little dishes, well, two pools, two pools of colour, slightly different, and they could be completely different, or they can be using the colours a little bit of each other, so then there is a nice connection and cohesion to your book. Let's get some muted in there because I've got hot pink. So you can see I'm just mixing, and that's the idea, just mix your colours. You don't have to use just what you have. To me, this is part of the art process, is doing the colours exactly you want, like not something that just comes out of a bottle. But it really doesn't matter. Use whatever you like. So you can see with a fountain pen ink, I am changing the chemical composition of the paint, whereas this is acrylic. Fountain pen ink absolutely is not. So that does switch it up a bit. I am also adding water. Acrylic inks are much better at taking water than acrylic paints. What I wanted to do was to create an aging effect on the sides, but I'm not trying to make it look authentic. I'm not trying to go for like, oh, this really is an old book type of thing. There are dark purples in there and all these colours, so it very much is just an artistic book. It's not trying to recreate something that would really look like that in real life. But I like the idea of giving it a bit of an age. So the way I do it, to get this blended nicely, is I wet the page, just a sprit. This is a hairdresser's bottle, which I would never be without. I get the brown. Oh, this has changed. This is not the same brown. From drying, who knows? So I get that in there on the sides. Can get a different brush. I normally get a different brush, but sometimes I just dip in, and it's that change starts to change my colours as well. When you're dipping in and out of things, then the colours in there start to change. But and then that's completely unpredictable what it is that you're getting. Now, I haven't actually tested these colours before. I'm doing this with you, so whatever comes out, comes out. Okay, so that's a little bit too bright for what I was doing. But what I'm doing, I'm getting most of the colour in the middle. This colour on the outside is now sinking in, but it's a little too bright. That's not quite how I did it, but I do go over it a little bit. There we go. That's happening there. So I do go over. Now it's going to be different for every single paper. Some paper it's going to sink in so much. You're going to have to do this in faster. Some paper it's going to, the sizing on there is going to make the brown sit on there so much that it's going to be a little bit like watercolor, where it's all just going to mix and become mud. But if you can manage it, then what you do is it's just as I did there, and then what you get is this nice variation, and it's blended in somewhat without it being really, really stark. On some pages I went over almost the entire thing, so that it's not completely blended, but there's completely a blend, and then the edges are just slightly warmer or browner, just because there is that underneath. And then I get a very blobby spritz bottle, which is this very old Ranger one that I have, and I spritz it ever so gently. I might also get the opposite colour. It's not the opposite colour, it's just the other colour that I have, and then do some splashes as well. You're going to get different splashes for every brush that you use, every different brush that you use. So this nice wide one that you're using for this gives me this sort of age splatters. I don't know what that means, but it means something to me in my head. You know, that worn I should say the worn look that I'm getting in my book is more like a what's it called, water damage. That's it, like a water damaged book. So you know, this could be like I don't want to think about mold, but it could be something that mold would do, you know what I mean? So I'm not trying to get really arty mixed media type of splatters that I would normally do in my art, and it looks like a paint splattered page. I want it to look this sort of aged look. I'm going to get this on, but I will probably blank it out. Okay, so that's nice and dry. Hopefully the camera picks it up. It's just a very, very subtle effect. You can see that there is aging on the ends. This is nicely blended in, these splatters. The water has a subtle effect on this one. These books, because of the nice heavy pages, you know, they're not going to fall apart. They can take a decent amount of mixed media and paints and wetness. So I'm just going to go for the darker one this time. Again, I'll do my... Yeah, this has changed colour. That's so interesting. By sitting there, I still like it. It's a little more I don't know what it is. So I've gone darker here because I'm going to put a darker one on top. So all of these colours are coming out really bright. I'm not sure what I added. I think I added a little bit of the brown into them to dull them. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. But I just I just use so many colours. So the water's just helping everything blend well, and it's thinning the paint out as well, because it is quite bright. So like I said, I get most of the colour off the brush into the middle, and then I push in to the brown, and it blends it. And I can leave some areas like really not blended and just really nice and stark, because it all, you know, adds to it. And other areas it's in, so it's kind of the brown, a little bit of the brown's come into the purple, and a little bit of the purple's going into the brown. While it's nice and wet, I want to get some really extra drops on this one, so I'm doing a little bit more of that. And so you can see I'm dipping the brush. Oh, that's way too way too bright. That's fine. It's only too bright for the book. These are just paper. Okay, so that was an important note to make. If you find that you've got so much water, or just with the paint, the ink and everything, you do these splatters and then you don't really see anything afterwards, it's because of that. If it's too wet, then it's just water on water that, you know, just blends all in together, and you won't get any effect. So you need it very lightly damp, and then so just experiment around the water. You see, you just want there to be a sheen on your paper. So if a lot of water has ended up on there with the paint and the spritzing and all that, then just lightly dry it a little bit and then get your spritz on. So you can see just lovely, lovely, lovely water damage. Why is it the end of that page not? I've got to get it. I've got to get it. I could just damage it and then it'll be fine. So beautiful water damage up there. Because it was very wet, this is damaged now. I say damaged, you know, the damage effect has happened now on the side. So that will happen with a very diluted and wet ink that I got there. So because that was on the side and then that one went in the middle, it sort of drew all in and comes away. So you'll get natural water damage look from the wateriness of your page, and then you can add this splatters and that adds a little bit more. So you can see how brown that is at the top, and I really like it when we've got really nice dark brown areas, and I also like it when it just looks very subtly, you've got this more intense color and then it becomes worn. So there, I think really that's it. I might just do a couple more. Where's the other one? Oh, it's the other side of this. So you can see what a difference. I have two very, very different pages, very different if you go bright. So you might have an altered book that you want a really nice bright colour. So you can certainly do a agey kind of look with it still being very bright. And I love this. You can also do that it's not aged, but you just do two different colours just to get a nice two-tone effect. And but yeah, if you want more the age look, then you want more brown showing through and more muted colors. But that's it folks, and I need to go and get my kit up. But I'm just going to do one more because it's kind of fun, and just to show you again. So what happens? Okay, so what happens if I don't do it like this? If you don't wet everything first, it's hard for it to blend well, and I really want the edges and the middle to blend together. I really want to have the effect that it's all one thing rather than two colors. If I don't, did I just wet this? I did. Okay, let me show you if I don't wet it. So I just got a dry page. So first of all, it sinks into the paper much faster. The moment you have ink or paint or any paint sink into paper, it becomes more difficult to blend, even if it's quite wet. So this is already harder to spread because it's dry. Okay. And having to put more paint means it's going darker, so I'm not getting the subtle effect that I want, which is fine. You might want it dark. It's not easy to blend. It's not impossible. So now I'm getting the purple into the violet, so then we have a more effect. So I'm having to work harder to get a blend, but it's not impossible. I will do the water damage, which is easier to do because it is so dry. So you can see when your page is not so wet how lovely you get these splatters. That's all it is. It's just water, but it's water in a certain sort of way. You can also just drip if you don't have a bottle. If all your bottles are a bit too misty, you can drip with a little bit with a paintbrush and a really thin brush, and get that on. If you can find, where is my brush? If you can find a fan brush that gives you nice strips, although they do tend to be all small, but if you're very drippy with it, you can get the large ones and the small ones. But look how much more that water damage stands out with it just picks up the paint. It repels the paint. But how well the camera picks it up, this is very stark. this here. I don't see a line because I did work on blending it, so that's okay. And this just gives you another look. It doesn't mean that this is bad. This isn't bad at all, but I tend to prefer, you know, as far as looking like an old weathered page, I tend to prefer this look other than this one. But I do have some pages in my book that looks like this because I was doing all of them differently and just trying it out to just to get variety, and that it doesn't all look that all looks cohesive, but it doesn't all look samey. So it just depends what you want. If you want something that is just a nice color to your page, then do it on a dry page. If you want a really weathered look, really mottled paint look, then you go for spritzing the page first. I think I've showed everything, but if you have any questions or something that you saw in the flip through that I might be missing, then just let me know. I'm happy to answer anything in the comments, and I hope that helps. Okay, bye for now.